Hey folks, Robbie Payne with Chrome Unboxed again, coming at you today with the full review of the Samsung Chromebook 2, the 13.3-inch variety. As a lot of you may very well know, and if you watched the unboxing of this device, it comes in at 13.3 inches, 1080p display. It is LED backlit, it is not an IPS display. It comes with the Exynos octa-core chip, 4 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of built-in memory, and all the various ports that you would expect from a modern day Chromebook. So let's take a view real quick around the hardware and close it down. You will see the device is very, very slim. Hardware was very impressive on this device. Around the side here, you've got a USB 2.0 port, you've got a Kensington lock, combo headphone microphone jack, nothing across the back, save the hinge. You've got the battery slot, which I've got this plugged in. I have been using it and ran it down on battery. USB 3.0 port, full-size HDMI, and we do have a micro SD card slot hidden behind this little plastic wall here, which is finagly to get open sometimes. There we go. You see, standard micro SD card slot. So for those of you who are hoping to get that full-size one in there, that's not going to happen that easily. It is adorned on the top with this faux leather finish. Those of you who've been looking at this guide knew that this was happening, fake stitching and all. I will say this particular device, compared to the Galaxy Note 3 in black especially, or any of the Note tablets with this faux leather finish, this device tends to feel a little bit more plasticky in the hand versus that leathery feel. But it looks nice, honestly. It's not off-putting at all. It actually gives it a pretty decent feel, and the device overall is very solid, a big step up from the Samsung Series 3 Chromebook. Across the bottom there's really nothing except the feet and some screws because we don't need any fans. We're running an ARM processor, which is a nice touch. We're going to open it up here and get a glimpse of that display. I'm going to tilt it back just a little bit. Like I said, this is an LED backlit display. Thus the viewing angles from left to right, not too shabby. I'll turn it just a little bit here. You can see we don't really lose much. On the other hand, top to bottom, you get some serious loss of color, polarization, what we expect out of a TN panel, pretty much, LED backlit or not. And so, again, a shame that we're not seeing any IPS panels yet, except for the HP11, which doesn't perform that well. We're going to move past that because I seem to rant on that all the time. Continuing on with the hardware, we've got a webcam up top. Again, these are basic Chromebook features, so this is nothing out of the ordinary. We have a rather large trackpad here, I believe 4 inches diagonally across. Plenty of space to move around on here, and the chrome around it is a nice enhancement. The trackpad's nice and quiet. Good feel to it. It's as good as any trackpad, save the Pixel, that I've used on a Chromebook thus far. Very responsive, nice smooth motions, all your multi-finger gestures work just fine, which is very nice, and a very good step up from previous ARM Chromebooks as far as performance goes. The keys have a slight scoop to them, very well textured, very good travel, very good typing experience. And the device as a whole has a little bit of give to it, but honestly it's firm, it's well built. What you would expect out of a $399 laptop. Honestly, it's more than what you would expect hardware-wise. If you went and bought a $400 laptop that was running Windows, you would expect something much cheaper in its overall feel and appearance than this device. Moving on back up to the screen, the screen is very, very crisp. It is the first 1080p Chromebook. Now the Chrome base, which I do have my hands on and we'll be doing an unboxing review and all that kind of stuff in the following days. It is the only other 1080p device that I know of, and then again I'm excluding the Pixel here. And so everything is very crisp and very, very clean. Everything looks really good. Again, if you're tilted at just the right angle, colors are pretty good. They're not really that much better than any of the other TN panels, but the crispness does add an extra little bit of quality to the display, and so I did appreciate that. What kind of bummed me out a little bit, especially with this being a 13.3-inch device, is that at 1080p, you can kind of see, probably if you're taking note, how little all the icons are. And that carries over into text rendering and everything as well. And so if I bring up a page here, I mean, this text is pretty tiny. I've got good vision, but it was a bit of a strain unless I was right up on it. Now, if it's in your lap and it's real close to you, not that big of a deal. But when it's sitting on a desk, this becomes a bit of an issue. Now, you can go into the settings and you can change your font size, and so that affects some things, but not all things across the operating system. And likewise, you can actually change the scale, so you could zoom in. I actually ended up leaving it day to day, zoomed in at 110 or 125% in order to feel like I was looking at a normal page. In my personal opinion, a 1080p screen needs to start at 15.6 inches when it comes to scaling issues. The way the pixel got around it technically is that it's scaled at half the number of pixels that were actually on the screen. So it's still scaled as a 720p display. And so icons felt normal size for the display itself. And you can't really do that with 1080p because it's not quite dense enough to scale halfway back. And you do any of the other scaling, I've tried some of the other resolutions on it, and they are very blurry. They don't look good. They don't do the display justice at all. So I ended up sticking with this, cranking up the percentage on the zoom a little bit so that everything, at least inside of a web page, was zoomed in a bit, and turned up the font size just a little bit. So your mileage may vary when it comes to those things, and you may like everything to be kind of tiny, and that's cool. But again, for me, it works a little better if it's stretched out across a few more inches on the screen. 13.3 seems a little small. I think 1600 by 900 would have been spot on the money for this size display. And I think 1600 by 900 would be great for lots of Chromebooks. But again, that's a story for another time. All that to say, the display is very good when we're comparing across Chromebooks. Again, you pull out an iPad or something with an IPS panel on it, or you get in front of a regular television or a regular monitor or your phone or something like that that has a much nicer display on it. Just like any other Chromebook, it becomes pretty apparent pretty quickly. But the extra sharpness is kind of nice, and overall, it's a decent display. Just the size issues kind of gave me some issue there. Now, a lot of you have been wondering about performance, and really that's what it comes down to with Chromebooks anymore, right? I mean, you get in, you put in your password, it downloads all your stuff, you're caught back up to where you were. And it's one Chromebook's no different than another Chromebook when it comes to Chrome OS at its core. So there's not a whole lot to show you there, but there is some stuff I can show you because this one does pack that Exynos ARM-based processor. And so performance has been an issue. A lot of people wanted that octa-core thing to really just knock it out of the park, but I've got to tell you, Intel's still winning right now. Now, battery life on this guy I can't show you right on the screen because it is charging right now. But pretty much it clocked in at 7 to 8 hours, and pushing pretty close to that 8 hours when I wasn't in the Ubuntu interface all the time. And I will show you, I do have it already booted into that. You can switch over to a Linux distro of your choice just by that click. And if you're looking at this and going, hi, how'd you do that? There's a video, subscribe, get in the channel. There's a video that actually shows exactly how to do this on any Chromebook. And so with just a couple touches, you can jump back and forth between Chrome OS and Linux, because ultimately Chrome OS is based on Linux anyway. Anyhow, I find myself in that situation less and less, but it's still important. I have a couple apps I need to be in Linux for, and so it is important that it works, and it seems to work on every Chromebook I've tried it on, and this device was no different. I got Linux up and running. There may be some apps that you're going to run into that just won't run. For instance, one of the packaged apps, the games, is... the name escapes me. It's a mystery, like a murder mystery 3D game. I cannot think of the name of the game, but Murder Files. Sorry, it actually will not run still on this device. It wouldn't run on the Series 3 either. I was really interested to see how it would render on here because it's not heavily graphic, but it's all 3D, and so I just wanted to see how it would run. Wouldn't even open on here. However, I did get Skid Racer to run, which I'll show that to you actually here in just a minute. I'll close everything else down and make it fair. Because what I found in this device is while it absolutely trumps the Series 3, it is a little bit left wanting when compared with the current generation of Intel Chromebooks. So those Haswell-based Chromebooks are right up there with the battery life that this guy's getting. And yeah, they've got fans on them, but they run circles around this thing still, performance-wise. Now, that being said, if a Chromebook for you is going to be something you pop on the couch, you check Facebook, that kind of stuff with, you're going to do some light web browsing, close it back up and go to bed at night. If that's what your Chromebook does, This guy is well up to the task, much more so than the HP 11 or the Series 3 Samsung. And I'll show you a couple things here. I've got Google Plus loaded, which we know notoriously does not run well on Chromebooks. Two-finger scrolling, no problem. Pretty smooth, and we're not even dropping frames as we're scrolling through here. And I've got some other sites open in the background, so that 4 gigs of RAM is really doing what it's supposed to be doing. Saw a little stutter there, but that is not surprising at all with Google Plus. It is a very intensive site. So we'll go over to The Verge. Again, another intensive site I usually put these devices through. You can see some frame rate drops in the scrolling, so it's not the smoothest thing in the world. It's jumping around a little bit, but ultimately getting through the site, if we were going to scroll kind of smoothly like this as we're browsing, we don't see any real hiccups at all. And so for your real-time browsing scenarios, this seems pretty worthwhile, a pretty decent experience. And I didn't have any issues when I was just browsing. The issues I had performance-wise, you can kind of see it's lagging a little bit here. The issues I had performance-wise were when I had multiple tabs open and I was working on across a few websites and had a few other things open. The Pixlr editor down here, had some Google Music running, my notes up, and 4 or 5 tabs, and then the file browser. When I got into that point, we started running into some issues as far as the processor being able to handle the bandwidth. But you can see all your gestures work just fine. I'm going to play a video for you real quick and kind of hear the speakers a little bit.
Box coming at you today with an unboxing of the much anticipated Samsung Chromebook 2. As many of you know, it comes in a variant of 11.6 inches, 13.3. I went with 13.3 because it does come with the 1080p screen. The 11.6 inch comes with the 1366 by 768 that we're kind of used to on most Chromebooks. So this one does have a step up in screen resolution.
So not the loudest speakers in the world. It plays high def video with no issue whatsoever, and that actually ended up being a pretty decent experience. I watched some trailers and that kind of stuff on YouTube, and it actually was a pretty decent experience watching on this thing. So performance-wise, it's a huge step up from the old ARM processor, the Exynos Dual. Just a huge step up, but it still does lag quite a bit behind, because honestly, comparing the Samsung Series 3 to say the HP 14 or the Toshiba or something with that Haswell processor in it, it's not even a close fight. It's a completely different experience between the two devices. This closes that gap substantially, but there's still a pretty wide gap there. We'll also look at Twitter here, which again is a bit intensive for some reason. I never could figure out why. And some of the scrolls are a little bit behind, and the frame rate's not the highest, but it's usable, it's workable, and so that's a big step up. So I'm going to close all these guys down, and I'm going to show you Skid Racer, this is the game that they used. I think I've got it down here in my apps actually. This is the game that they used when they were showing the i3 Acer Chromebook at the Intel event a few weeks back. And it's decently resource heavy, but it's a fully browser based racing game, and you'll be able to see pretty quickly how quickly the frame rate drops on this device. And just for comparison's sake, if I open this up on my Acer C720, for instance, it runs high frame rate almost the entire time. It hiccups every once in a while, but it handles it pretty well. So let's get in here. Let's go. And this loading time is pretty normal across all devices. It does have to download a good little bit of information. Obviously, we're running a 3D game here in the browser. So some of these things are exciting regardless of how they run right now. It's exciting to see this stuff happening with web technologies. And so you can already see the frame rates are pretty bad. And it's running better than it did the other day. There we go. It's usually once there's multiple cars on the same thing, and so they're just kind of skipping around. Very low frame rate, I'd say in the single digits probably at this point. And that's all I'm going to do with that. So yeah, if you were to open this up, Google Skid Racer, open that up on an Intel-based device, and it runs pretty smooth. So I wanted to show you a couple comparisons to let you know the outside hardware on this. I feel like it's the HP 11 all over again. Like the outside hardware, I like a lot of it. I like the trackpad. The keyboard's great. The screen's pretty good, minus the small icons and small text issues. So the hardware's there, and then they've stuck this ARM processor in it that, you know, you run Octane on it, you're getting somewhere around 7,000 or something, whereas the Intel Haswell devices are getting between 10 and 11,000. And so I don't really understand the point of ARM processor Chromebooks at this point. I thought for a little while maybe that was going to be a push, like this was going to be what happened with Chromebooks, but nobody else has adopted it. And Intel's really stepped up. I mean, we would just have to give them credit. Got to give credit where credit's due. They've stepped up. The Haswell processors have been awesome on battery. They're coming out with the Bay Trail processors. They're coming out with the next generation of processors after that. They're going to get better battery life, and some of the i3s are going to be fanless. I don't know that any of them are going to be in Chromebooks, but they might be. So we might could see a fanless i3 Chromebook. I mean, this Intel has stepped up, and the ARM division of Samsung and ARM in general has a lot of way to go if we're going to talk about putting them in desktop scenarios. Now in phones and in mobile devices, they kill it. They're awesome. Intel doesn't even have a little bit of leeway really in that. But in this scenario, right now Intel owns it and they're winning big time. And so overall, I would say the Samsung Chromebook 2 is a good Chromebook. It's not great, it's good. It is a better experience than the older generation ARM processors, but it's not as good of an experience as the Intel ones. The only real upside it has is that it doesn't have fans. And I don't know about you guys, fans don't bother me that bad, unless they're really loud or something. But no Chromebook I've had have I sat around and thought, man, I wish the fan wasn't so loud. Never have I thought this. And so the fan thing isn't really a big deal. I do like how thin and how well built this guy is, but it doesn't change the fact that I couldn't continue working from it the entire week. I just couldn't do it. I was unable to actually do some of the tasks I needed to do, and when it got to that point, I knew that it was time to kind of put it away and get the review done and move on. It's a good Chromebook, and if you're using it for light use, you're going to be happy with it. But don't expect to game on it, and don't expect to do a lot of heavy lifted work on it. This guy is for light consumption, and at $399, that might be a tough sell. And I think Samsung might be in a little bit of trouble sales-wise with this particular device. Now, the smaller one that comes in at a more reasonable price could be just fine for most people. This one seems to struggle a little bit. And who knows, at 1366 and 768 resolution with the same processor, we might see a little bit better performance. But I'm going on what I'm seeing here, and I'm still saying Intel has got it together when it comes to processors and Chromebooks. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments down below. Hit me up on Google Plus, and let me know what you think about this device, whether you're still thinking about getting it or not. If you have any further questions that could help you make that decision, just let me know. I'll do my best to get my answers to you as soon as I can. And I hope you keep watching. I hope if you're not a subscriber yet, you hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video. And until next time, guys, have a good one.